Pokercast, presented by RunItOnce.com. I'm your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane.
I have a very good brain, and I've said a lot of things.
And Mr. Terrence Chan. T, how's it going?
Going good.
We
got scones and baseball night here at the Pokercast.
It was, yeah. We just finished watching the Blue Jays defeat the Baltimore Orioles.
Spoiler alert for those people who are listening
recording
to this one and who wanted to watch a baseball game 18 hours late.
Yeah, why not?
Not GTO.
Yeah,
not playing GTO on the Orioles side.
Game theory and sports managers / coaches is got a ways to go for sure. Leaving Zach Britton on the bench there, but anyway, T, a couple things off the top before we get into the poker stuff. First, I don't know. I know you. There's like a 50-50 chance you don't know this happened, but Kim Kardashian.
I'm gonna go with like 90-10.
This tilted me. It tilted me pretty hard today, and I want to see if you can figure out why. I'm sure you can. Kim Kardashian. Of course, you know who Kim Kardashian is.
The line just moved to like 98% that I don't know what happened.
She's in Paris, and she got there was an armed robbery of her in her hotel room.
Oh, wow.
She posts pictures of this $5 million ring and brace and all this stuff on Snapchat. Oh, look how rich I am.
Right.
And then, I'm not blaming her by any stretch. I'm just saying what happened. Yeah. So a bunch of people got dressed up in ski masks and.
Oh, wow. So this is like right after she posts on social media that she's got all this like.
Yeah. So she's got all this stuff.
Not that you didn't know that Kim Kardashian's wealthy.
Right.
But like, yeah.
Yeah. So they break in, they hold her at gunpoint, and they steal $10 million worth of jewelry from her.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Traveling deep.
I love that you two both don't know about this, by the way.
No.
This is like
I read
TMZ
about
in my house.
I didn't. Yeah. Anyways, I read the story, but I don't know what you're going to say.
Okay, so I'm listening to Howard Stern. I'm a loyal Howard Stern fan, and the topic comes up. Robin's doing the news as she usually does, and they say NRA tweeted, shocking that these thieves didn't adhere to France's tough gun laws. Sarcastically saying, look, strict gun laws don't work. Right. She got held up anyway.
If she only had a gun to protect herself?
She only had her gun to protect herself. Yeah. So, and then so Robin's reading the news, and Howard's like, yeah, I totally agree with that. This kind of stuff happens when you can't defend yourself. And I'm on supreme tilt at them saying, using one example of somebody getting held up at gunpoint as to gun laws don't work.
Right.
Instead of using statistics that they have available to them, it's a sample size thing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a sample size thing on sort of a lot of it. I mean, like the thing is, anytime when you're talking about like policy, like government policy, like you've got all these moving variables, right? And we could talk about these things, like I mean, I'm sure your argument is just sort of knowing you that like stricter gun laws lead to less gun crime. But what we actually know for sure is that like stricter gun laws correlate with less crime. So we don't know whether this is a causal effect. Now it could be like,
right.
or it might not be, right? But like, I mean, but obviously like,
so I'm not.
It's two sides of the same fallacy, right? Like, so the NRA's. The NRA is saying, well, like, look, if Kim Kardashian had a gun, maybe she could have scared some people off, which is determined likely if these guys are like professional criminals.
Right.
I mean, you would have thought that someone like that rolls deep with a lot of security anyway, but that's beside the point. I mean, I guess. Yeah. But and then the other side of this, of course, is that like, I mean, we know that actually banning guns like doesn't necessarily make places safer because shit happens.
Politics aside, I mean, you know me, my politics, but this didn't even tilt me on a political level. This tilted me on a math level.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
it's dumb. Yeah,
they think we're stupid, and we are.
So anyway, I wanted to just get that off my chest. That tilted me a bit.
This is the Adams tilt. Adams
tilt of the week segment.
Yeah,
yes.
when it's not baseball or game theory in sports,
raging inferno tilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't do a show in between last week's show. I think this is a full week between shows. You had to move out. You had some issues. You moved out of your Airbnb that you had into this fine place.
Unbeknownst to me.
Yeah, Ross
shows up at the wrong apartment.
Where are you guys? We're 40 miles away from
It's hard tracking me down. See, I learned. I'm a little smarter than Kim. I'm just going to say, I'm a little smarter than Kim Kardashian when it comes to certain aspects of my life. I don't post on social media about how I'm currently packing $5 million on my human, nor do I try to tell people where I am.
You do have those tasty scones in here, though.
I did. It was the baking show when you got in here. It was Ross and Robin like racing to see whether she could get the scones in the oven faster than Ross could set up the audio equipment. And it was close. They needed the instant replay on that one.
And this week you're heading up to the interior of British Columbia. You're looking for some farmland. I thought it'd be interesting to quickly talk about this. You want to buy a giant piece of land in the middle of nowhere?
That's maybe the plan. I mean, we're not like 100% committed to it, but we've sort of been thinking like
it might happen.
The city life, it's like, the city life is all right. Like, we enjoy the big city, but if we, if kids are on the horizon, and what if the earthquake hits, or what if the apocalypse hits? I mean, I've always had a really weird bent of the apocalypse, and in me, like, I always thought like global financial crisis, like massive terrorist spree, nuclear winter. Like, there's all these.
I think
things.
everybody has that.
Yeah,
everybody, like, I've had that my whole life too. I'm like,
okay,
I'd like to have a piece of property where we can bug out to.
Yeah,
in case something happens.
Okay, good.
But then you think, and especially it actually happens a lot when you have kids. It's one of the first sort of thing it's a primal drive.
That. Too poor to care.
It's because you care more about other people than yourself, whatever.
Sure.
But then you think, well, if the apocalypse happens, am I interested in surviving so I can, die of radiation poisoning 8 months later or something?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends how far into the middle of nowhere. You could always go into the middle of the Northwest Territories, and
it's not getting you.
And like not getting you like but I mean, there's certain things that certainly living Vancouver and Hong Kong, with two places I spend most time.
Like the two most expensive cities in the world.
They're the two most expensive cities in the world. They both have like massive earthquake risk. Hong Kong could just get eaten by China. World War III could easily start on the West Coast. Like the
U.S. could just invade Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, they're just.
Well, Trump could win.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, then we'll have Americans creating Vancouver. It'll be like Black Friday again. It'll just be like, oh, look, there's all these Americans.
Yeah.
Things like global pandemic. Let's say like there's just this flu virus that the doctors can't get rid of. Then you'd want to be as far away from anybody as possible. I've always had a little bit of crazy in that. So we're just kind of checking it out and see if we like it, and we'll drive around. We'll see some properties. So if you happen to see us on the side of the middle of absolute nowhere, British Columbia, and you happen to say like, I wonder if doesn't that guy sounds familiar? I think he does a poker
tattoo
show
on him. Yeah,
he does. Yeah, well, I don't think it's shirtless weather outside there in the Okanagan.
No,
but I'm
so farmland. You're gonna raise chickens, cows.
Yeah, chickens, cows, pigs. We're gonna have greenhouses and orchids and
it's like a lot of work.
Everything, and solar power and gas
off the grid.
Just I don't know.
Septic fields?
I don't know. I don't know how to do any of these things, so it's very easy to talk about that. It's so easy to talk about these.
In theory, it's a good idea.
These things that I've heard about. I can fucking barely put an IKEA table together, man.
You're in trouble. Then.
I know. But hey, there was a time I didn't know how to play poker. I figured it out.
Yeah, that's true enough.
I didn't know how to fight at one point. I figured that out.
Are we gonna fight? You gonna wrestle bears now? Like, there's nobody.
Yeah, the training's gonna be hard. Maybe baby bears.
There you go.
Maybe I'll wrestle baby bears. There's some good videos of
wrestling bears.
Russian MMA.
I was watching that the other day.
Were you?
It's so awesome.
Habib Nurmagomedov, who is probably
what did you say?
The name is Habib Nurmagomedov.
Wow.
It's the most Russian thing you've ever seen in your life.
He's from Dagestan. He probably is the legit #1 contender in the UFC right now. He should be fighting for the title, but he's not. There's an image of him like at age 8 wrestling a baby bear. It's adorable and horrifying at the same time. It's both.
And their training is just like, we're going to run up this mountain with rocks on our back today.
Yeah,
like
that's
old school.
You grow up in the Dagestani region of Russia. That is how you grow up.
They're just wrestling in a field, like a bunch of like professional fighters wrestling on the side of a mountain. Like,
I must break you.
And now this guy's just the best in the world, straight up.
Is he?
He's so good, nobody even wants to fight him.
Is he a heavyweight?
He's a lightweight. He's 155-pounder.
Wow. Nobody will fight him.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, Conor McGregor, like, just jumped in line for him for the 155-pound title because he's Conor McGregor and he's got the marketable value. And then Eddie Alvarez, who's the 155-pound champion, chose to fight Conor McGregor for the bigger payday than to fight Habib, who is less of a payday and a way worse guy that you would actually want to fight.
Really?
Yeah, so he's sort of ducking it for the payday, which you don't blame him. You got to get paid in this business.
Yes, you do. All right. Speaking of it, this is our SharkScope question right here.
Speaking of getting paid.
This is our sponsor, SharkScope.com.
Many zeros.
we had a long discussion about how we were going to, stay afloat. When PokerStars left, SharkScope stepped up and said, we want to be your sponsor. Please spend some time giving them your business if you want to keep the show going. This is the kind of stuff that helps us continue to do the show, is make our sponsors happy. SharkScope is running where they've posed a question to our audience, and the winner is going to get a 1-year gold membership valued over $300. Second and third are going to get a 3-month membership to sharkscope.com. And the question is, what is the most entered tournament, the most popular tournament in online poker? Head on over to our forum, the SharkScope thread there in the Pokercast forum at 2plus2.com, and throw your answer in there. Please jump over, spend a little time there, and you might win a gold membership.
Don't they have to be specific about buy-in range, or
make as many put in as many details as you possibly can?
You got to hit those tiebreakers.
You got to hit the tiebreakers. The best answer is going to win. So go head on over and do that. Quick shout out to Raven Dancer 75 for the 5-star review on iTunes. Appreciate that. Let's get on to some in case you missed it.
Dude.
How did he miss the open goal? 6x4, and he comes up 0.
Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it!
He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
In case you missed it, PokerStars has signed on to be the title sponsor of the Global Poker League. GPL, it's had a tough time getting traction. I don't think there's any sort of denying that. The numbers aren't near what we thought they were going to be or hoped that they were going to be. This is certainly something that could help poker and take poker to the younger e-gaming audience and turn them onto the game. It's been a slow start for sure. I think nobody would disagree with that. But PokerStars coming along and becoming a partner with the GPL, I think, is a huge, huge step for the GPL. I think this is great because of all the different verticals that PokerStars can now offer the GPL to integrate into their marketing and drive traffic. What did you think?
Yeah, sort of two thoughts on this. Obviously, number one, huge for Alex.
Yep.
He's a situation where people were certainly speculating about the financial viability of the GPL, especially with what we talked about a few weeks ago with, him borrowing money and then kind of seemingly taking a sweet time to get it back. So, you kind of wondered about the long-term viability. Now, obviously, some of those paychecks will start coming in and there'll be some viability going forward. Alex, took a gamble. Whether he, took a gamble with other people's money is kind of up for debate, but he took a gamble and he kind of knew that this wasn't going to be a hit right off the start, but it seems like this is the very, certainly, if not the first step, one of the biggest steps towards something that paid off for him.
Having access to PokerStars TV, all the stable of pros that Stars can bring them, I think it's just huge. I mean, I can't imagine a bigger event for the GPL than this. Never mind the money. The money obviously is going to help them, but the exposure and the different things that they can partner is massive, I think.
Right. And the second point that I sort of took away from this, and it's a positive one, I think, is that it shows that PokerStars is willing to still kind of spend money on poker in this way, because there's always been this thought that, it's the new Amaya, they only care about getting people into play slot machines and sports books and all these other negative EV games where they're not losing money in the poker sense, and they're just going to fold up this poker shop. Maybe there's a little direction here that PokerStars continues to be interested in poker as a game. Maybe it looks different than the way it looks now, but a positive sign there. You have to give credit to PokerStars for when these things happen.
Totally agree. Didn't think of that angle, and it's something that's sort of nebulous on what the benefit could be to Stars, and for them to take that jump, like you said, and say, hey, we're ready we're ready to spend some money on you guys, and hopefully we benefit. But this is, because if the GPL fails, it's bad. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who would think, gee, that's great.
Right. Even if nothing else other than just sort of like a general sign of the times is that somebody looks at this and goes, well, these guys failed, so why should I invest in poker?
There'd be a lot of people who were like,
That's the kind of person to say a toe-to-so. But you know what? A toe-to-so.
There would be
a fucking a toe-to-so.
a big lineup of toe-to-sos. Alex Dreyfus said, we're optimistic about this partnership. Having the support of PokerStars is a crucial step. on the road to fully establishing the GPL as a real blueprint for poker entertainment in the future. PokerStars offers us a multitude of opportunities to grow our platform and continue developing our twofold strategy of connecting the league to the poker community and genuinely connecting poker to the mainstream entertainment sector on a large scale. Fans will also see the iconic PokerStars spade on its on the cube, the big centerpiece for the televised matches. Stars will be working with Madeira X Sports Entertainment on a number of promotional initiatives designed to connect both existing and prospective poker fans to the GPL. The GPL starts with 12 teams from across the globe, consisting of a 72-strong roster of pros. This is sort of background information, but the one thing for me for the GPL that's sort of made me wonder if it would be more successful. Yes, it's these high-profile pros that are playing against each other, but I really felt like another angle for the GPL might be at a grassroots level where you put a team together and you play in free leagues and you get a shot at playing one of these teams in
the sort of like an amateur team you can put together, like an amateur team to play on the big pros.
Remember pub poker? No. It was in every pub, like in mid 2000s. Every pub.
Oh, you're literally talking about like these things that are connected to like by the whatever weird network was.
Right.
Every bar was connected to every bar or whatever. Yeah.
It was free poker. It was no money. Yeah. It was like people flocked to it and they loved it. That's what the grassroots
proto play money poker.
Right. Yeah. And it really helped. I think it
yeah. I mean, it would. I mean, that's not a bad idea. I'm sure if you submitted that to Alex, he'd be interested in sort of having an amateur team, take on these sort of elite, Fedor Holtz type guys. Would certainly be interesting.
I think it would be interesting. All right. In case you missed it, more PokerStars news. The New Jersey Championship of Online Poker, the NJ Coop.
There's harder to say than the Scooper to the W Coop, isn't it?
NJ Coop.
NJ Coop.
Scheduled to start October 15th, running right through Halloween. 43 events. Buy-ins ranging from $15 to $1,000 are on offer. $1.2 million in total guaranteed prize money across the series. Main events of $500 buy-in, $200K guarantee. Are we going to have people VPNing into New Jersey now? To play this.
I'm trying to think. So now I'm thinking back of whether they required cell phone geolocation in New Jersey. Not that you can't get around that too.
Yeah.
But God, I should know this, but I can't think of off. I should know this. I worked in this industry for 6 months, but I mean,
it's cool.
The thing is, it's not very hard to get to New Jersey. It's like if you're in Philadelphia, or if you're in Pennsylvania, or if you're in New York, it's not very hard. All you have to go border, hang out at a Starbucks.
But you probably have to have or you would have to have an address in New Jersey.
No,
you don't?
That's definitely not required. You can have an address in South Korea if you want to.
As long as your device.
You have to physically, as long as your device physically geolocates to New Jersey, you're good. So
cool.
Across the border into a Starbucks, you're fine.
Yeah, you could probably set up a desk in the back of Satrials there, and
I don't know that.
Like
what's Satrials?
From you guys?
What is
Sopranos?
Okay.
Never seen Sopranos? No. Only the greatest show in TV history. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
I looked at the schedule, and it is No Limit Hold'em, like 80% of the, which was interesting. I
think there's like a 500 PLO.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah.
It's mostly No Limit Hold'em, and then if you look
were you expecting like 7-card stud tournaments because that's the East Coast?
Yeah, I was expecting more mixed games, right? You think about the East Coast, I think about mixed games.
Yeah, I don't think it's been that way in a while. I think we're just old. Like
maybe it's
like old, they used to play stud on the East Coast, but I'm pretty sure if you like rock up into an Atlantic City casino,
it's just
I'm pretty sure there's no more no limit games than stud games.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. By the way, I'm pretty sure the proper pronunciation will be NJ-Coop.
NJ-Coop?
NJ-Coop.
NJ-Coop. So there's a new coop for all those people who have like 3 of every coop championships. There's nobody with the with the Grand Slam
It's hard to qualify for that one.
Yeah, I guess we'll see who cares about getting the Grand Slam. In case you missed it, we're about a month away from getting down to the November 9. There's of course the continuing shows on ESPN to get down to that 9 people for the final table here in October. I think it's 31st, isn't it? It starts on October 31st, goes through to November.
Sounds right.
The coverage continues, and it continues to be focused on Will Kassouf, who we had on the show.
Of course.
He's the main topic of conversation.
If you were a poker producer, would you put him on the feature table?
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure you would.
Yeah, he's creating a lot of conversation. Even, you look at our thread when we had him on the show.
Yeah, it's the busiest thread in the forum right now.
It's the busiest thread we've had in a long time, and it's cool. He is that sort of divisive figure that everybody has an opinion on if they like him or not. I wanted to do a couple things. First, I want to talk about a hand that was played, and this gets to this whole speech play thing. This was the last hand of the last episode on the weekend that he played, and he played it against a guy who was a pretty decent player. This guy I think he's gone deep in a bunch of tournaments. He's not a casual player. And there was, if you watch the 2 episodes this week, again, Will Kassouf is talking to people nonstop during hands. When he's playing hands, he's not talking three-handed. When it gets heads up, he's continually talking to his opponent, whether it's the actions on him or not. So this hand, I want to talk about this hand quickly first. So he's playing another big stack at the table. He's on the button. Will is in the small blind. The button is Kekwan Lau. He raises, standard raise, opens with ace-queen off. It's folded to him. Kassouf is in the small blind with 2 9s, and he 3-bets, standard 3-bet. Sizing, goes into his speech, big hand, and I'm not 3-betting you out of position, blah, blah, blah. If you show, I'll show. The whole dog and pony show that he does every hand. Lau calls, and the flop comes 10-10-7. Lau has ace-queen off, completely whiffs. And Will leads, I think, for 2/3 pot. He makes a pretty big bet on the flop, and Lau calls.
Yeah,
pretty standard so far.
Totally standard call.
The turn's an offsuit 3, total brick. There's no flush draw, nothing. Now he bets 1.5 into like 2.9. Bets half pot, and he gives him the speech and starts talking to him. Lau calls. River bricks off. Oh, no,
I think it's a king.
River brings a king. Doesn't brick off. Will checks, and Lau snap checks behind. And I'm thinking, okay, you just got talked into a whole bunch of, it feels like Kassouf kind of played him pretty hard with his speech play in this hand. To get him to call the turn. I think the turn was a pretty bad call. The river, if you're going to call that turn, I think you got to bet the river there when you've got ace high. I don't think your ace queen high is going to be good very often.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the turn call, he's got second nut, no pair, and he's got position. So there's still a lot of good things that can happen when you can make top pair. You can still value bet when you make top pair.
He's calling 1.5 of his $6 million, $5 million stack, something like that.
Well, it's a half pot size bet, right? So it's certainly you don't want to be necessarily calling there, but I certainly don't think it's the worst. The river, that's sort of interesting. I want to sort of, I haven't given a lot of thought to what Lau's range would be after calling 2 streets and whether this is the bottom of it.
There's no. What could he have? 8-9, I guess.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't know if he's calling the turn with 9 high.
Yeah, I think that's
he's
probably worse than having ace queen. So I guess he's pretty close to the bottom of his range now that when you think about it a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was interesting how to talk about it.
Sure.
It felt to me like. Because I'd been watching, hadn't made too many sort of mistakes. He hadn't really been out there. He's
definitely experienced.
He's played well, yeah. And I just kind of thought, I felt like William kind of got to him in that pot.
I mean, maybe you don't know. I mean,
we don't know.
I don't think we have enough
sure
information about how Lau plays this hand in a vacuum to know about.
For sure, it just like I said, it felt like
yeah.
it when I watched it. Or whether it is or not, I could be completely wrong. I just thought it might have been that way.
I think it was funny because I think Norman Chad even made a joke. Well, surprising. Norman Chad made a joke. He was like, unbeknownst to Kassouf, Lau doesn't even speak English.
Right.
And he does, obviously.
Yeah.
Lau obviously does speak English, but, I mean, it's just sort of funny. We could... He could talk that way if the guy speaks English, and then everybody goes like, oh, he totally talked him into it. And the guy's just like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Next thing about Will I want to talk about is, of course, this whole speech play thing. We mentioned it. Everybody's talking about it. It's the main focus of the ESPN coverage so far. Yeah. But also, it's a sort of a topic in the poker world, not just us in our forum, whatever, but a lot of people are talking about it. It seems to be a polarizing issue, of course. Sean Deeb, a friend of the show, who tweeted something to the effect of, everybody who's defending William is what's wrong with poker. And we defended William, so I thought
we're what's wrong with poker.
We're what's wrong with poker. Again, yeah.
I think he said it was something more like a sign that a sign of trouble for poker or something like that. I don't think he was quite that clear about it.
Really? Because I remember it differently. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll pull it up right now.
Pull it up.
I've got it. I've got it right now.
This is the sound of Terrence
finally
Googling.
Watching the WSOP episode. The fact that anyone is defending William Kassouf shows how bad the future of poker looks.
Okay.
So it's not quite
similar.
As bad
it's
as
right in between both of us. Okay. But I thought it'd be fun to bring Sean on the show, where we have Sean on occasionally when we want to talk about something in the poker world. So
let's give that man a phone call.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do a little early 140 or less, Terrence. We're going to Sean Deep, our buddy, tweeted this week, and the gist of it was people who are defending William Kassouf are what's wrong with poker. And after we had just spent a couple hours defending William Kassouf, and again, it was the very first episodes that were shown on World Series of Poker on ESPN, when we didn't see that he was sort of tank folding rags and stuff like that obviously we dislike a great deal. But the general table talk, speech play that he calls it, I think is what Sean was talking about. So why don't we bring him in? Sean, welcome back to the show.
Hey guys, always great to chime in with my usually very mild opinion on situations.
Sean Deeb's Corner on the Pokercast. Love it. So are you coming from the... So when you say he's what's wrong with poker, are you talking about the actual speech play that he's doing at the table, or is it a combination of a bunch of things? Give us your take on it.
I just really think, I think he played it up for the cameras. I understand he's talkative normally, but, every time someone shoves 20 blinds on you when you're playing 80% of hands, you're in the big stack deep in this tournament, just fold your hand. I just hate the people who lie about their hand every 3 seconds, want to act like, oh, you're a marginal fold every time, It's I understand you're trying to, reduce action, but people are not idiots, Everyone played enough and seen enough of his hand. He has some really weak hands in his range. And, I know he got some attention, and as soon as he got a little bit, it seemed he was talking, and I talked to some people who went deep with him, and they're like, he's sitting under the gun giving a speech, hasn't even looked at his cards yet, It affects the other tables, and it's unfair to be at his table. For him to spend so much time on antics, people want to talk about just pre-flop tanking. Well, his tanking doesn't seem as long because he's talking during it, but he's still wasting a whole bunch of time, and everyone, is missing out on hands because of him.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sean. And I was one of those people that when the first episode of whichever one it was that first came out with him, getting into it and
with Jack.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with that episode, yeah, talking, trying to get this lady to make a big laydown on the river when he was making a big bluff. I was one of those people that thought oh, okay, good on him. That's clever. This lady's in the tank. He's doing whatever he can do to induce a fold because he's got nothing. That was pretty cool. It was interesting poker. But then as the World Series started progressing, then you're seeing him getting into these tactics, like you said, he's talking without even looking at his cards. He's doing things like he flops set over set on a guy, and he's calling for cards. When the guy's drawing to one out in the deck,
he's not even in the hand.
Yeah, there's no strategic value in it, and something like that. Or he's doing things like talking, making nonsense speeches before he's even reaching for chips. That's the kind of stuff that drives me crazy. But what do you think about the stuff that has to do with potentially influencing action? So, I know this isn't your style. I played enough poker with you. But what do you think about just the pure, when the action's on the other person and you're trying to, psychologically manipulate him or her into doing what you want to do? Do you think that part is fair game?
I think for me personally, it would be beneficial. I think I'm pretty good at interpreting how people are speaking and what they're saying and how the story fits. But I think for a lot of recreational and amateur players, it's going to make them standoffish and turn them away. I think there's a silent majority who are just so disgusted by him that if they ever got his table, they would have a miserable World Series experience. One of my favorite stories I heard from this year was Mike Gordinsky had a great day 1A, was having a scotch the end of the day and had whatever well scotch that Rio had, and one of his table mates randomly sent him a scotch, a nice bottle of Chivas or something, not even the greatest thing, but it's still very thoughtful, a nice bottle on day 2 with his stack, and said hey, if you're going to drink scotch in a day, you need to have something a little bit better. Those are the experiences, the bonds that you have with people. Obviously, people are going to berate me because I'm known as a needler, but I don't needle the recreational players. I needle the pros or the wannabe pros,
Sure.
And there's a big difference between recognizing who fits in what category and just ruining a lot of the experience, because many people play the main event have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And for you to feel the spotlight and belittle them and make them feel like shit and just constantly throw your ego on the table constantly, it's just not good. I understand it gets TV ratings. People oh, this is the poker we like. Yeah, but those guys who did it back then, say the Matasos, the Helmies and stuff, their rants were less generic. They were more post-hand, not during hand. And there's such a big difference to recognize that. And I just think Kasuf is just an amateur when it comes to that. And he's not used to the spotlight, which is fine, you know. Plenty of people grow up and recognize that they went too far. But I really think that he's embraced the attention, and Negreanu supporting him and other big-name players are just even worse for poker. Now you're going to have 35 copycats. I think you think about, what was it, Raincon a couple of years ago at the World Series, did all his antics, and he did that just for TV, and then they had all these rules to stop people over celebrating like him, you know? It's great to see true emotion, and we see that plenty of times in the World Series, but I don't like this, you know, fabricated emotion for the attention to act like, you know, this is the greatest. Like, the guy's sitting there sweating pots that are $600K when he has $8 million, you know? There is no reason to be that emotionally invested in a pot that's a portion of your stack.
Right.
And it's just so many hands I've seen. I haven't even seen episodes 7 and 8, but there's just so many times I watch them on TV that I'm just like, you know, this hand, the producers think it's interesting because there's actually talk going on, but there were more interesting hands. There were other conversations that were, you know, more pure and had more value than just his random diarrhea.
I think if Ed Khan, I mean, if you're going to excuse Helmuth, and then Ed Khan was after a hand was over too. I understand what you're saying. The thing about the speech play for me is that you brought it up. He kind of intimidates recreational players a little bit. You saw Tony Gregg make a fantastic king high call on him when Kasuf gave him the speech on the river when he was bluffing, and it looked like Gregg basically snap called with king high and was good against his jack high. So, it's one of those things where it looks like it hurts the recreational player more than it does the professional player.
And he's also giving equity. Like, I think if he was given long-term a bunch of solid live players, you know, I think Jason Les didn't look too great. I think he had a lot of unfortunate marginal hands. But I think if there was someone in a position I'm actually knew what they were doing, he would have got roasted. And I think you're going to hopefully see that later. And, you know, he isn't that good of a poker player, which is fine to advertise on TV, but the way he just thinks he's so good, you know, I just think that's you don't want those egos in poker. I don't think that's what people want, and I don't think that's going to progress the game. Is everyone just wants to be the alpha male at the table. I feel like most of my generation has gone past that point. I'll recognize, you know, sometimes you're going to be the chips, big stacks, sometimes you're not. You don't always have to be the one saying a comment. You don't always have to be talking, you know. You can take turns, and I just think he didn't allow anyone else to get any spotlight at the feature table or any table. Not even that's necessary. It's just, you know, let other people breathe and think. And, you know, there's massive equity swings going on at this stage. And to be forced to make these decisions without having, you know, silence, which is kind of like, take golf for an example. If, you know, you see a lot more emotion at the Ryder Cup, which is great, but they're still not doing stuff in the middle of the swing. And there's just a common respect that is earned from all players who enter a tournament to give them that opportunity to think clearly and not be distracted, whether it's crowd noise, whether it's, you know, another player. And I just think that that was violated, and I think the ethics should have been more aggressive in giving him penalties. I just think they didn't want to deal with the backlash, knowing that would be people who defend him, the Daniels of the world, who obviously are defending him for his penalty. But I think if he was a lot more strict early, there would have been a corral much sooner and a lot better for all his table mates.
So let's talk about the appropriate penalties. Or first of all, I want to touch on something that you and Adam were just saying, which is about how, you know, how this play might not work on experienced players. But I sort of think that's sort of the part of being like exploitive versus GTO and all this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, you know, when you 3-bet out of the blind with 6 deuce suited against some bad player, that's also the kind of thing that will not work well against a good player. But people take different lines, and you could sort of make the argument that all of his talking, it's going to lose him money against elite players who have been there and done that, but maybe it makes him some money against the average recreational player. But I just want to throw that out there. But I want to talk about the penalties. So where would you, sort of as a tournament director, draw the line? Because we talked about this, and we were saying that, he's not really in violation of the rules. Adam and I were saying, when we were talking about the original hand, the Stacey Madison hand, where he talked her into folding the overpair. we didn't really think that he did anything out of the rules, and if he did, that stuff probably shouldn't be in the rule book, to be perfectly honest.
Here's the thing: when a floor person tells you to not do something, and 3 times you talk over him after he said don't say another word, that alone, that is foreman's discretion. They give you a request that is a reasonable request. You have to follow up on that. So the fact he didn't listen to Charlie say multiple times, no more talking, and Jack was like, no more gestures, no more this, and they gave him plenty of warnings at hand. So regardless of what the rules actually say, when a floor person tells you to not do something, then that is the rule at that point. That is the wall has been set, and he kept jumping over that wall constantly.
But aren't we kind of opening it up to say, somebody said on our forum, why don't we just have one rule in the rule book that just says the floorman can kind of make whatever rule we want? They're sort of the purpose of having this stuff written down is so that people can have an understanding of what they're allowed to say and what they're not.
But there's always been the rule of at the foreman's discretion. There's been rules that have been way against what is the generic rule, and there's been times where the situation there was extenuating circumstances, and they changed a very basic rule that's always been in play. Like, say the oversized chip rule. I've seen times where it's a clear amateur who very obviously didn't want to do it, and the floor says okay, and they allow it to go back, to protect the amateur. And that's one of the key things is protecting the players. I mean, there's 7,000 people in the main event. How many professional? 1,500, 2,000? That's 5,000 recreational players. You need to protect them. You need to make sure they have the best opportunity. Make sure they have a reasonable shot in the tournament. Obviously, we all know they're minus EV, but you don't have to just make sure their EV is 0, and every pro can talk them into fold, can intimidate them, can scare them, can convince them to call when they have the nuts. It's just a very, very bad door to open. And I as one of the people who would benefit from that, because I know how to needle, I know how to get on people's skins, I know how to hand read and recognize who's scared money and who's not, and then play into their ego if they're not, if I have a good hand, It's just, but I don't think I need to do that to gain an edge. I still think I'm quite profitable in the tournament, and so I don't need to do every single move in the book to maximize EV. That's why there's the Doug Lees who are angle shooters. They take every opportunity to maximize EV, and that's what it seems like Husev is to me.
So we had a situation, when we talk about that penalty, first of all, the dealer says to him, you can't say how much is in the pot, which I don't think is a rule, even though the dealer kept saying it to him. You're not allowed to say how much is in the pot.
I think that should be a rule, because you can manipulate and lie to someone and say there's $3 million in the pot if there's 2.7. You're influencing action and giving false information, and then now that person has to think about what is the pot size. And there's a reason why dealers can't tell the pot size. But if a player's going to give information, what happens if he says there's $1 million in the middle and there's $400K? Is the dealer supposed to correct him? Well, if he says there's $10 million and there's $25 million, that's why you shouldn't be able to say those things, because you can manipulate the action too much and you can abuse a weaker player and basically mess with people in a way that I think ruins the spirit of the game.
But don't you think it also ruins the enjoyment? Like, we're in an era now where poker, we're making it sterile. Everybody we're talking about for years. We've been saying people show up with their iPads and they put their music on and they got their hoodie on and their sunglasses.
I agree that's a problem, but I actually responded to someone's tweet about this yesterday. I said, just because you guys don't like the silent hoodied up kids doesn't mean you automatically like the other extreme, the outlandish, over talkative, just spewy guy. And there's a middle ground. I feel like I'm more on the talkative side, maybe too far in a lot of situations, but I think there's plenty of pros who are super friendly at the table, super outgoing, make conversation, make non-poker conversation. There's a middle ground. And just because we went too far to the left doesn't mean we go all the way back to the right of the Jamie Gold era days, We don't need to do that. And I think that, yes, this is getting the conversation more correct, and yes, I think we'll push the median a little bit to the right, to the more talkative, friendly way, but we don't want to have basically a shit-talking contest at every single table. You're going to get half as many hands. The floor is going to be running back and forth and be babysitting a bunch of adults. And you're going to have so many people say, I don't want to come back. Like, I leave my wife and come to Vegas play poker to not get yelled at. Why do I want to sit here and start getting a yelling match every single time I'm at a poker table?
Yeah, he definitely did seem to irritate a lot of people. Did you get a read on him at all by his talking? Could you? I
was pretty confident. Like, if I was at his table, I would have a good idea. There's a lot of things of when he talked and when he didn't talk, when he rechecked his hole cards. You never know if that's just editing. But I think obviously he's not that good of a poker player. So I think there's a lot of things he gives off that someone who's more experienced in live play like myself would figure out. I don't know if I would have had the time. Obviously, it's a lot easier to pick up those reads seeing his hole cards because there's less showdowns in live poker. But I feel like I could extrapolate just based on frequency of hands played, some of the sizing, and just, his demeanor. It's pretty obvious the kid's just steely. He usually bluffs it all off, but he got lucky to have the nuts most of the hands you saw, and he was able to chip up from there. And because there's a lot of scared money in that tournament, that laggier style is more successful than a normal tournament where people are more willing to make a stand outside the money, in the money, at different stages of the tournament. They're winning the battle. And I think he would have been knocked out of most tournaments a lot sooner. There's very few, I think, his style fits as well as the main event.
Fair enough. Thanks so much, Sean. We got the $1 million buy in one drop. You're flying over there to jump in that. You're a casual player now, right?
I wish. I actually thought I was going to coach someone, then that fell through. So, I'm making up to my wife for missing the birth of our child. And so I've basically been in the shit house for a while. But my wife's amazing. My kids are amazing. And, just got to work on what I can do here and then be on the road the next time.
Awesome, man. Good luck in your next poker endeavor. And thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, interesting take from Sean there.
Yeah, I mean, it's we have Sean make the joke off the top. This is Sean's corner. Ross is probably gonna have to find some sort of music if we have him
for Sean's corner.
Every 2 weeks, we pretty much have Sean on.
He always wears the same hat.
He does.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's always good to because we don't always agree with him. But I find myself not always agreeing with him, but at least understanding his point of view on this one. And this was one of those ones where I sort of come around to his point of view a lot, and 2 or 3 weeks ago or whatever, the first episode where Kasuf was first on and we interviewed him, I sort of said I'm a fan of this guy. I mean, I'm not a fan of the guy, but I mean, I
it's interesting.
Appreciate what he's doing, on the broadcast to make it a little more interesting, a little less sterile, to use your terminology. But now, as we advance and the act is starting to really get old, and he's doing it in all these spots where it's ridiculous. And I'm right there with Sean, and I think pretty much everybody else in the poker world when I say this has gone way offside.
You know what it's like to me? It's like watching a baseball game and watching a manager lose his shit on an umpire. Come running out, put his hat backwards, and just start arguing with the umpire.
It's always comical. It's like sketch comedy when
right.
when the manager and the umpire yell.
Makes interesting TV, I guess.
Yeah,
and we of course we had this. We keep.
I find it funny in baseball that the umpire puts out with that, because in every other sport the guy would be snap ejected.
Yeah,
just you wouldn't even get the opportunity to get that close to the umpire.
Baseball's so boring. You need to have
there you go.
Interesting
just like
stuff
poker.
happen. Yeah,
just like poker.
Yeah.
Cool. You know how Sean's a real dad?
What?
He presses the buttons of his phone against his face.
That makes him a dad?
Yeah, did you hear him do that?
Yeah.
I heard him do it. Why is that
a dad?
It's such a dad thing to do.
That's a dad thing?
Oh,
yeah.
So like everybody who doesn't have kids knows that you're supposed to hold the phone like a decent length away from your face.
Oh, you're supposed to hold it? I hold the phone. Well, I have...
You're cool, Dad, though.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I don't think my kids would agree with you, but... we're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. We've got tons of stuff to get to. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast, sponsored by RunItOnce.com.
Hey, Pokercast fans. Don't forget to follow me, Adam, and Ross on the old social medias. I'm at TChanPoker on Twitter, and once in a while I'll even talk poker if I'm not trying to hit him in the face. If Adam ever gets home from hockey practice, he tweets at PokercastAdam, and Ross is at PokercastRoss whenever he's sweating the Chicagos. Hit us up and try to keep it to 140 or less. I mean, fewer.
SharkScope can now add free money to your bankroll, and all you have to do is be an overachiever. SharkScope.com has a fun tab on every graph that says achievements. They're very attainable goals, like won a tournament of more than $100 or played 100 tournaments in a month. Sounds fun, right? Well, now with our partner PKR, you can earn money for those achievements. Simply play on PKR, turn over the achievement cards, rack up points, and win your share of 2,000 euros. Also, you'll be entered into our 1,500 euro free roll just for getting 5 points. See all the details on sharkscope.com and click on the Achievements Challenge in the menu. And don't forget to opt in to participate and also get in on our weekly $10,000 draw. Sharkscope.com, the best for over 10 years. Track your statistics, avoid the sharks, and find easier tournaments at sharkscope.com.
Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month. Okay, people, most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the Pokercast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. Pokercast at 2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
Welcome back to the 2plus2 Pokercast, presented by runitonce.com. That's the Violent Femmes. You played right there in the break, coming out of break, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am the Horns of Dilemma. I played with them.
Are they the Violent Femmes or the Violent Femmes? Do they?
Femmes.
Why? Why not? Why aren't they the Violent Femmes?
I don't know.
Why aren't they
pronounce it
violon?
They don't pronounce it in the French way. All right, one more quick thing in case you missed it before we get on to some other stuff. Max Silver was on Joey Ingram's podcast. I hope everybody watches the podcast. It's fantastic. And he had some interesting things to say. First, I want to read an email that we got this week, and then we'll get into some stuff.
Ooh.
Quick email number 1 drop, Roscoe.
Email number 1.
So this was a great email. The subject line was 7 ways Trump is an inspiration. Number 4 will shock you.
BuzzFeed.
Which is fantastic.
We got an email from BuzzFeed.
Yeah, he was funny. Matt, hey guys. First, hopefully Terrence doesn't jump out of the window at the prospect of a political email. Lucky the title is just clickbait. It has nothing to do with politics. I'll read most of it. He says, I've emailed a couple times before, both collusion-based emails. One was about swapping pieces, which I still think is collusion and won't be swayed. Remember we talked about that a few shows ago. The other is Antonio colluding, playing a hand a certain way, which I realized I was completely wrong about after Terrence spoke on the subject. I did say I wouldn't email about collusion soft play again, but that beautiful bastard Max Silver actually had my back and talked about collusion on Joe Ingram's podcast. I know it's difficult for you to talk about it since you're close to it, which isn't a criticism. I'm not sure what he means there. But take a step back and look at it from an outsider's point of view. If you're not a regular and you hear about people swapping pieces, you're inevitably going to think they're working together. Even if they aren't, it simply shouldn't be allowed, as it's the epitome of collusion. What makes the situation worse is if you owe backers money, adding extra incentive, and he goes on. Not everyone is Terrence or Phil Galfond. Quite a lot of poker players, this goes for most people, are opportunists who wouldn't have a problem doing what's necessary for their own survival. It's even worse online. I remember when Terrence was playing a scoop tourney with Nanonoko on his table and was messaging Ross, who was watching Nanonoko's stream. Obviously nothing wrong with that, but it got me thinking. Let's say it wasn't Terrence playing and Ross watching, but instead as two players in the tournament messaging back and forth during multi-way hands they're in. How often must this go on, especially in multi-table sin goes? First, obviously there's a delay, so I don't know.
Long delay.
Yeah, I don't know what he means
and I could just watch a stream myself.
And he could watch the stream. Yeah. He goes on, I love that the businessmen have told the poker players to bugger off with this new invite-only tournament. He's talking about the one drop, $1 million guaranteed, obviously. I guarantee if somehow swapping could be stopped, then more business people would play tournaments. My boss's boss plays in some high rollers, semi-famous city guy, but he no longer plays them. Ego to beat the best only carries so much for a businessman. They still want a fair challenge. As you can tell, I've become very militant in opposition to swapping recently. Just too many experiences where swapping has caused collusion or soft play. Even the example you gave of a buy save the other week made me incensed. That is collusion. This is the one I was talking about with my brother and Andrew Barber. Anyway, please, can you try and get the amateur business person's point of view in the show soon? I'm going to try and get Bill Perkins.
Oh, cool.
I think that would be fun to have Bill on because he's the perfect person to talk about all this stuff.
To see if he cares kind of about how much
because he understands it all, right? Yeah, and he's there. So anyway, that's sort of the gist of the email. And he's reacting to Max Silver going on to Joey's podcast, and Max had some interesting things to say. He was playing in the Monte Carlo High Roller.
Yeah, 50K.
50K, and he had 8% of himself. but he also had a 5% swap with David Peters. They were down to 10. It paid 9, I believe. David Peters open shoved a small stack, and it folded around to Max in the big blind, who had ace-king off.
Right.
And he said, if I like money at all, I'm supposed to fold here 100 times out of 100 because of the equality of his interest in who cashes in this thing.
Exactly. Busting, or actually, I don't know who covered, but it doesn't matter. Like, either doubling up and crippling David or busting David would be harmful for his own EV.
Right. So he sat there thinking, wow, this is really bad. I have backers, and I'm supposed to...
behave in their interests.
Behave in their interests, but I'm also supposed to behave in my interests, and this is a serious problem. He decided that, of course, he was going to do the right thing and call like he's supposed to when he's acting on it just for his backers and,
for his own tournament equity, basically.
For his own tournament equity, yeah. And but he said, how many people are going to do that? And it's an excellent point. It's never really been told in this fashion by somebody. We've speculated on it. We've talked about it. It's been talked to death in the poker community about swapping and is this ethical. But this is a real-world situation. This is a real-world example of how it can go wrong.
So a couple things on this. First of all, I like Max. I don't know him really well, but he's a person I get a good vibe off of. I think he's one of these honest people. The fact is, though, I don't know if there were cameras at that table or something like that, but certainly if there's any sort of whole card camera on that,
he can't just fold.
He would be busted in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So if there's maybe whether there wasn't, and for all anybody else knows, he folds 7-3 offsuit in the big blind. I know he's not telling the story to sort of pat himself on the back and say, look what I did. I did the right thing by calling in a bubble situation against this guy who basically I had the same equity in as I had in myself. And I know he's not trying to do that and give himself a pat on the back. He's illustrating the point of, a less ethical person might do this. Now, we don't have any real clear examples of this actually happening. Yeah, we suspect that it probably is.
Well, he said there's one example of a televised high roller tournament. He said,
yeah, that was weird too. I heard that, and if you guys are interested and you check out Joey's podcast, he talked about a televised tournament. He wouldn't name which one, where clearly there was some collusion soft play going on. Joey was losing his mind, saying, "What tournament is this?
Tell me.
I don't know what's going on. Where can I read about this?" And Max was just stonewalling him at every opportunity. So you don't get any information about that in there. So unless you already know what TV broadcast he's talking about, then I guess you don't even be interested. And that kind of bugged me too, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, don't bring it up.
Exactly. Don't tease around things that this thing happened, but no, I can't give you any details about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
That you're not helping the cause at all. I understand that he doesn't want to make himself public enemy number one. That's fine, but then don't bring it up and so
But the other part,
so I like Max. But I've certainly got an issue with the way he's addressed the problem.
But that other part that he talks about, I think, is he's naming David Peters and naming himself, saying I did the right thing. So that's important, I think, to discuss and for the poker world to discuss. And, how do you solve this problem? I don't know. The only thing I can think is that these high rollers are just going to go away.
Yeah, that's sort of when I was thinking about this problem, too. It's kind of like the EPT and the World Series and everybody else just has to decide, okay, the biggest tournament is going to be $3,000 now.
Right.
And I don't see them doing that.
Well, a tournament director has to, at some point, sit down and go, okay, we're asking these poker players to behave ethically when, for their bottom line, they shouldn't be. They should be doing something that is against the spirit of the rules. So it's at some point it's on us for offering a $500,000 buy-in tournament or whatever they're doing, $250, where we know everybody.
Even $50,000 buy-in, because Max Silver's talking about having 8% of himself in a 50K.
Right, he's got yeah.
So he's got 4K of equity in himself.
Some small amount of money. So, but offering these tournaments, it falls at the feet of the organizers at some point.
It does, and they have a conflict of interest as well, because when you create a $100,000 buy-in tournament and you take juice on $100,000 buy-in tournaments, whether it's 5%, 3%, 4%, whatever it is, you're making a lot of money and you're putting that money into your own pockets and the pockets of your employers. And so they now don't really have an incentive. They have an incentive to look a blind eye too, right? They don't want their reputation run through the mud by people it's okay to cheat in my tournament, but they also have a very strong incentive to keep running up the buy-ins, and that's why you've seen, like, as soon as you remember, like, for the longest time, like, what was the biggest tournament? Like the 25K WPT final. For forever, that was the longest tournament. And then when you started breaking into the 100, all of a sudden there was 100Ks everywhere. Then the Aussie Million would have like 100K and a 250K on like the same weekend. Yeah. Right, like, and then all of a sudden, like, now all of a sudden, every you're not even considered a real poker circuit tournament, like, unless you have a 100K buy-in tournament, like, and so the tournament organizers, the tournament directors, the people who promote the stuff are just as complicit in this as the poker players.
Totally agree.
You know.
All right, should we move on to some emails?
Let's do it.
And now.
That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
Mailbag. Email number 2.
Ahmad from Bekasi, Indonesia writes, about 22 miles from Uncle Kel's place. He moved here to North Jakarta. Hey guys, looking for your input on my theory that life is better playing 6 lots of one table from 6 of the top 10 sites rather than 6 tables of PokerStars trying to get a platinum and useless supernova. I'll be running the experiment until the end of the year. Next month, $5 PLO and then $10 PLO for November, December. Blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, forfeiting 10% rate back and staying at silver on stars allows me to do well on 5 other sites. Playing 6 to 12 tables and stars really means you'll be seeing the same players 3 and 4 times over again. It also means they'll be seeing your game, stats, and moves. Choosing the best table at given sites overcomes the stars levels downgrade, and in my experience generates less tilt. At the micro stakes, I'm winning 4 or 5 of the sites in a given day. Easy to chuckle away the 2 outers. It also allows you to play comfortably on networks that have lower traffic without worrying that you should be multi-tabling. P.S. Purple Spa Massage have reduced their price 90-minute massage from $15 to $12. If Roscoe wants to pop in for his plus experience, it's on me. But it's an interesting point.
Are you known to frequent the? I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand that. Are you a Johnny Chan style massage parlor?
No, I've never I've never been to a massage parlor.
There you go.
I don't wonder what he gets like. Ahmed just
called
assumed.
Ross
I
out.
think the first massage I ever got was in Hong Kong with you, a foot massage.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah,
I missed the Hong Kong foot massage.
Most of the ones I took you to were legit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most.
Yeah. It's a good point, though, he makes. He sent a picture in as well. He's playing 6 tables, all from different networks.
Yeah.
I understand what he's saying, because you can't just look at one cashier and go, oh, shit, I'm down 3 buy-ins.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to get my money in bad here to try and win this big pot or whatever. You can't monitor it all at once. You just play. I think it's pretty good, because I try and play when I'm playing. I try not to look at my cashier. But you have a rough idea of how you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and we all know that the non-star sites are way softer. Like, I think that is the worst kept secret ever is basically that stars is the toughest poker site. And, and I don't know what the rest of the pecking order goes, but in general, the smaller sites with the lower liquidity and the lower action are going to be much softer. So yeah, with stars reducing its loyalty programs basically, and just kind of phasing out the VIP program, why would you 6 table stars, to be perfectly honest? The primary reasons are, well, your
games are good to rake back.
Yeah, games are good to rake back. Like, if you really like the software, that's fine. I've tried to play. The software is so much better on stars. Like, it's pretty tilting to play on some of this other stuff where you're just how do I look at a hand history? Or, like, you click, like, 7 buttons to, like, change, like, the cards so that you can read them and stuff like that. Yeah. Where, like, stars is kind of the way you're set. But, if you're playing for money, then you should probably be playing on the smaller sites.
I agree. All right.
Email number 3.
Andrew says, I'm behind on the main event coverage and the Pokercast. Apologies for the out-of-date comments. First, how pissed is Phil Hellmuth that coverage starts on day 4 and he doesn't get his standard day 1 TV time? I love thinking about that. Yeah, you got to actually run deep now to get on TV. Second, another MMA weight cut question for Terrence. He said nobody wants to, but you have to because everyone does. Why not do the weigh-in a few hours early like normal for the promotion, then require another weigh-in a couple hours before the fight? If a fighter made weight days prior, he should certainly be able to again the day of, but could not do a big cut because there would not be time to recover. Why wouldn't this work? It's really funny that you say that, Andrew, because the promotion that I fought in, Battlefield, is actually trying something very, very similar to this. They are going to start weighing people at the rules meeting, which usually happens like 2 p.m. the day of the fight, and you can't be more than 8% more of your official weigh-in. So, typically, like, the event is on Saturday, weigh-in's on Friday. So the guys that are cutting, like, let's say a guy fights at 155 pounds, but he really, like, weighs like 180. He's got the 24 hours to rehydrate. He won't be able to do that anymore because now he can't be more than 8% over 155, which is, I don't know, like probably like 168-ish, something like that. Less than that, but even like it's like 165 or 166. Like, so they're actually trying to do this now. I don't know if it'll work because what might happen was people will make that sort of second weight cut, and then that might be unhealthy. The thing that I always worry about is that fighters are kind of dumb, and they are willing to do anything to get a competitive edge, and if it means like risking their own safety, they'll still do it. And that's why I'm always sort of skeptical about whatever method of manipulating the weigh-ins, whether you weigh people in the second before they step on their mat or the morning of the fight, or they weigh them, 6 weeks before the fight. Like, whatever method that you use, like, the fighters will always try to, like, find their way around it. And, I guess poker players aren't that much different, except that, fighters have this extra thing. I mean, we seem to have this extra gene that makes us take more risks and throw more caution to the wind and, risk our own safety in the name of competitiveness. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to try to get people not to cut weight, but they really haven't figured out the one yet.
There's no HGH and steroid issues in MMA, is there?
I don't know.
It doesn't seem like it would be something that would help.
HGH? I mean, I don't know. I don't know very much about HGH at all. So, yeah, I
don't either.
I think don't they usually, like, what's the medical use of HGH? It's like actually for like HIV patients who are like wasting away or something like that, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like, there's drugs and there's steroids and stuff like that, but I don't know that HGH is one of them.
Big problem.
Yeah.
Email number
004.
Fabian writes, "Hey guys, this is just the second time I'm emailing you in 8 years of listening to your ramblings." He goes on to say that he no longer plays, but he still listens to the show. Thanks for that. This is the reason I'm writing you today. I recently wrote a blog post about 5 lessons for life I learned playing poker. So I'm terribly curious to hear your poker life lessons. If I would have to guess, I would say Adam's lesson number 1 definitely must have to do with semi-bluffing at traffic courts and min raises of the local speed limit.
Min raises?
Well, driving 60 in a 50 zone, I guess, is what he was.
I don't know if that's 60 in a 50 zone might be a min raise. I think maybe 55.
55 is a min raise. Poker life lessons. So, I think there's a couple of things. Sample size is always the one that poker players think about. I think right away, and that other people sort of don't. Even really smart people.
We're sitting there watching the baseball game, and the stat pops up like this guy is 3 for 11 against this guy. Like, who cares?
11 is not a sample size in baseball.
Yeah. It's not even interesting if he's 1 for 11, right? Like, it doesn't mean he can't hit this guy.
Right,
like,
right. Yeah. And being results orientated, I think, is probably another one. Sort of life lessons, really. Poker just teaches you and sets you up so well for dealing with life situations, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's really to sort of look at things in a probabilistic sense, which is kind of the same thing as you're talking about. Like, you got to roll with the bad beats sometimes too. Yeah. And I think poker definitely helps people roll with bad beats. Some people better than others are handling life bad beats, but
you don't have that why me. I don't ever think, oh, God is picked me, or it's woe is me. Like, it's all of life is random acts of chance. Right. Basically, we're in this big giant random ball, and some shit happens to some, and some shit. But some people get really depressed about, it always happens to me. It's just
and a lot of it just comes down to, like, when something rare happens or whatever. Like, what are the odds that this would have happened? Well, you think, well, as a poker player, you try to think of not what are the odds of this particular situation. Like, what are the odds that you ran into your wife's cousins, whatever, at the subway station.
Massage.
The massage place. But you think about what is the likelihood that I could have ran into, like, all the people I knew through all the various degrees of separation, and you just, if you can think of things in a more probabilistic and mathematical sense, that's sort of That's a good life lesson for poker.
Keeps you happier.
Yeah.
Email number.
It's number 5.
Doug says, "Hi guys. Quite disappointed in the WSOP ruling and threats to William, and quite embarrassed for the heavy-handed approach for his speech play. Agree that Daniel, nor Phil, would have been penalized for speech play, nor threatened with a 3-round penalty. Characters and personalities are great for the game, including dress sense. Side note, could you mention or send on the podcast your voicemail number? Looking forward to leaving voicemails." Well, that's a wonderful segue, Doug. That is a good point. We have not pimped the Pokercast voicemail hotline number, which is...
To leave a message for the Pokercast, dial 1-702-799-9949.
9949. It's also, by the way, you just put it up in the forum, didn't you, T?
I did. I edited the questions and comments thread. It's in post number 1 of the forum at pokercast.2plus2.com. So in case you might have missed it from Ross's voice, it'll be right in there.
Do we have any...
I think we got some voicemails. Why don't we
just
jump right into them?
There is one.
Email number
6. Hi, this is Zach calling from Cleveland. You mentioned the event me and my coaching and podcast blog group, Just Hands Poker, is going to be putting on come November, and I really appreciate you guys doing that. Always good to get some more publicity for events like that. But the question I wanted to ask you guys was to maybe just to hear your opinions on coaching and the value of whether it's training sites or one-on-one coaching and kind of the value that it could provide. So something that I'm running into now as I'm trying to kind of expand the amount of coaching students I have and redesign my website is really explaining the value of coaching. I personally have paid almost $10,000 lifetime for online and live coaches. And to me, the value has been so high already, just kind of a few years into my career. And I imagine that return on investment will continue for a while. And I just, wonder what your opinions on, paying for one-on-one coaching, paying $100 an hour, $200, $300 an hour for some of the best coaches is. Is it worth it for most players? At what point does it become worth it? And then, how one might go about really, figuring out what a ROI from coaching is as a coach or as a player. So, look forward to the discussion. Football as well. Keep up the good work on the podcast, guys. Bye.
That's Zach from Just Hands Poker. Thanks, Zach. Good luck with your event in Akron. This is an interesting subject. I don't think we've talked about this, sort of the relative value of coaching in a while. And my personal take is I know a lot of people say it's helped me tons with my game. Zach says he spent $10,000. I think what happens, though, is when you spend that kind of money, or you do think this is, you're self-invested to definitely say this helped me. Like, I spent $10,000 and I didn't get anything. Do you hear anybody ever say that?
It's endowment effect. It's like one of the most well-known psychological concepts, right?
So I'm never sure, and I've never done it. I've never paid a bunch of money that I can remember anyway. Maybe I have. I maybe have once or twice for one session or so. I can't remember, but I don't think I have. And I always felt.
This guy's just completely out to lunch.
I always felt that the training sites offered me much better value, and I always felt
that. It's Adam from BigPoker.ca.
I always felt training sites were so undervalued with the price that they charged, and for the amount of coaching you can get. Yes, it's not tailor specific to your game, where you have a coach one-on-one watching you play, saying, talking about your specific play, but if you're getting value and you're good enough to get value out of a coach, I think you could be getting value out of videos to bring it into your game. So I always was a video subscriber, Deuces Cracked, other sites that I belonged to and spent money on before I ever got or even thought about getting coaching, because I just never was 100% sure that the value was there.
Yeah, I think both are valuable. I mean, back in my day, like the late 90s, early 2000s, like even reading one poker book put you out of the game, right? Like, so it was kind of interesting. And then, but, and I was on the forums early and always talking about hands. So, it's, in a way, coaching has always existed. It's just never in a formal context in my life. Like, I've had coaching from my friends. They've never charged me a dime for it because, there's interaction, there's quid pro quo. We just throw ideas around and we all talk about things in a lot of way. We never really settled on prices for coaching. Video sites, I haven't done a lot of that, but they're sort of the new poker books. It's sort of the baseline level that you need now here in the year 2016 to be competitive at the game, to get some understanding. And I'm sort of like you. I've always thought they were undervalued. And in the sense, when poker training sites first came along, what was it, in the late 2000s, my sort of thought was, oh my God, why would you do this? Why would you tell everybody how to play poker when you could be out there making money playing poker? Because, in the context that arrived, the late 2000s, it was, being really good at poker was printing money.
Yeah. And
so if you were, when guys like Phil Galfond started getting into like poker coaching, I was like, oh, why? Why are you coaching poker? And, so training sites definitely provide a lot of value. But where I think a private coach makes a lot of sense is, I think once you've like read the books and once you've read the videos, then you need somebody who understands the stuff a little bit better than you to explain whether you understand it as well as you think you do. Because you may read a concept and you may think you understand the concept. You may see like 5 or 6 hand history examples of the concept. We used to do this when we had the PLO Quick Pro thing. Ross would say, well, here's we're talking about 2-barreling the turn or whatever it is. But it was much more edifying when we had John come on and say, okay, this is a spot where you should 2-barrel the turn or you shouldn't. And that's because I think he's the experienced guy in this context. He understood what was going on. So I think private coaching makes sense in this way when you have very specific questions like, do I understand this concept correctly?
It's interesting, yeah.
Email number
7.
Last email, Brenna writes, thanks so much for answering my email. Or she was the one who had Queen on the stone bubble of the tournament that we talked about last week. Love the show, although not the drops so much. I think it's more of a guy thing. Which I thought was funny because
girls don't like drops.
Nobody's ever complained about the drops and said they don't like the drops.
We're not penetrating the female demographic with drops. Ross is not penetrating the female demographic again.
You're not. So you need some female friendly drops.
You got anything for us? Somehow, I don't think that's making it Brenna's favorite.
Yeah, she's not a Steve Martin fan at all. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Well, this show, we're going to come back. I think we're going to do an interview this week. We've got a couple prospective people we're going to do. We'll do it remotely.
Yeah, I can join you on the road.
Yeah, we'll do that on the road, hopefully.
Does the interior of British Columbia have internet? Yep.
Might have just got there.
Okay.
Thanks to Sean D for joining us, talking about the William Kassouf stuff. Thanks to you two for doing the show this week, and you for listening. Again, appreciate it tons. Head on over to our forum, and we will talk to you soon.
Ninja Coop.
Ninja Coop.
Ninja Coop.
Ninja Coop. Ninja Coop.